Hey, today this is going to be a video about how to turn 100K liquid into a little bit more than $1 million in less than probably 10 years or 10 years in US, specifically using a specific business model, what I'm going to talk about, which is buying a private business, buying an established business. The success rate of this business model as well, if you're going to use a loan, is typically also close to 92, 93% success rate. So I'm going to give you facts and I'm going to give you a process. I'm going to give you some ideas on how you can actually make this off. You can pull this off. So first of all, why would you want to buy a business? You want to buy a business because an established business already has profitability, already has success. There's no reason you need to start a business if you're not sure what your success rate is going to be, or you're just risking too much effort or too much resources or too much time. So this is the only reason you would do this. And this is a lot more doable for people that have better capital, better liquidity, um, better credit, and just more understanding of business. This is not for people that don't understand much things about business, and this is not for people that have no access to liquidity or don't have contacts that have liquidity. So if you're in US and you have a little bit above 100K, you can turn that into a lot more capital using this process. So just pay attention to the video fully. If you want to get access to a lot of these tools, a lot of these systems, a lot of these data points, you can DM me on Instagram and I can give you access to this. So first of all, go to a website called bizbuysell.com. You can see the website here. And what you can do is you can actually filter by all locations. You can filter by industries and listing types, and I would just filter by established businesses. I would also choose a value between $1 million and 2 million just for the sake of this example. So you can see how many opportunities are available as far as investing in US. Now, if this is just one website, there's probably a little bit more than 20 different websites that have different databases and resources on market. I'm not even talking about you personally reaching out to millions of other businesses that will eventually also sell to find these exact types of opportunities. So I've just already picked an opportunity and I've modeled the deal, but I'm going to show you why this is so important. Okay. So I picked a business which is it's kind of like a landscaping, construction, and some other things that they do. $1.6 million in value. 700K real estate is included. This is kind of a cash flow. This is kind of an EBITDA, 450K net profit. And it's a business that's been around for 32 years. So it's not a startup. It's historically profitable for a long period of time. Even for COVID, revenue has grown up. Okay. They have 12 employees and so forth. So I've just modeled this deal, and the reason they're looking to sell is because of combination of retiring and health issues. So very typical business to buy. Now, how are you going to buy this business? So you're going to buy this business using what is called an SBA 7A loan. You can go to this website called sba.gov and read about what SBA is. SBA is primarily is going to provide you financial assistance from the government to get a loan so that you can get into a business. So if you put down typically around 10% down, let's say the business is $1.6 million, you put down 160K, you could get in the rest from the SBA. You can see that this is specialized in acquiring businesses, and the way um, you can repay this loan is from the cash flow of a company. So the cash flow of a company pays the loan and you have nothing to do with it. Um, Yes, there are personal guarantees. Yes, you can guarantee the loan, but at the end of the day, you're using the business to guarantee a lot of the stuff. Now, what you also need to understand about the title of the video, which is the 94% success rate, the reason I have that is because I specifically know that for 2024, the actual default rates on the SBA 7A loans is in between 3.69 to up to 5.7%. On acquisition loans, it's closer to 5.7%. So what it means is the rest of the percentages of people who got an SBA loan on an acquisition deal, they've paid the loan in between 5 years to 10 years because the 7A loan goes for in between 5 to 10 years. That's the amortization time. So what it means is if you are successful to go and buy into a business and you bought it, you're going to have a very high success rate of actually still having this business and still having that net worth. Now let's go into the modeling so you can actually see the numbers. So I'm going to use a modeling tool, a very simple spreadsheet on this particular deal, and I'm going to show you a different example a little bit later so you can see how valuable this is and how much more net worth you can add to yourself if you're doing it properly. Now, as you notice, this deal also has real estate included, which is not just you're buying the business, you're buying the business plus the asset of a business, which is real estate, which is 700K. So you need to keep that in mind because sometimes when you do a deal, you can avoid buying the real estate and you can lease it. So that way you decrease the price point and you're able to do just a better deal. Now, if you remember, the deal was $1.6 million, and I'm assuming that I can negotiate it down to $1.5 million. So my modeling tool, I'm suggesting the purchase price is $1.5 million. Now, you've also noticed that the net profit of that company is closer to 460 net profit, 450. What I've done here is I've actually got an average of this business. So instead of me putting in the best year of it maybe they had 450, I'm just going to use an average, maybe last 3 years. So it's typically going to be lower than the number, which is 350. Again, this is a rough number. I don't have the financials of this company, so I can't really do it correctly. But just for the sake of example, let's say it's 350, and let's say we're going to pay $1.5 million. Okay. What it means is, including the real estate, we're going to pay a multiple 429 of that net profit. This is the multiple amount, which is not really that bad because we can exclude the real estate. I'm going to show you how you can do that as well. So if we go to SBA 7A and we get a loan, which is 90% of a purchase price, which is $1.35 million out of this $1.5 million, and we amortize the actual loan for 10 years at an 11% interest rate, and we don't do any seller finance, meaning we're not going to pay the seller later. We're just going to pay everything day one because in June, the SBA is going to change and we're not going to be able to be as flexible. I'm going to talk this in a different video, but we're going to assume that we're going to just put a down payment of 1.5 million, 1.5 million dollars, which is 150K, 10% of that. So we're going to use 150K in this example, a little bit more than 100K to close this particular deal. And we're going to get this amount for the SBA loan. What will happen is we're going to have this amount of service every year. This is the loan debt service yearly. And we're going to have this debt service coverage, which is important because if it's above 1.5, we're not really in a risky situation. If it's way less than that, if it's like 1.3, 1.2, it's a lot riskier situation. And then the SBA loan is not going to approve you, most likely. So if this is the yearly cash flow we get after all the debt service. This is how much you actually will have as an owner after you pay all this debt. Now, I'm not talking about net income today because I'm talking about your net worth today, which is your liquidity you're going to get after you sell the company in 10 years or more. So let's say that in 10 years, you're able to pay off the loan. So you paid $1.5 million. You put in $150,000. Now, in 10 years, this is your company with your asset. As you typically know, real estate appreciates in value in time in most cases. And in most cases, because of inflation and other issues of the market, the company is also going to be increased in enterprise value. This number might be increased, or sometimes it might not be increased, but because of inflation and other things, this number might be bigger later down the road. So in 5, 10 years, you might be able to have a bigger purchase price. So instead of you now selling the business for 1.5, you might sell it for 2 or $2.5 million in 10 years. What it means for you is you've put in $150,000 in a bad time frame with a success rate of closer to 93% because the default rate is closer to 5 to 6% of these loans. You've got close to a $2.5 million actual value of a company, which is now your net worth if you would sell the business. You could sell this business in around 3 to 6 months after you've done this process. Now, in 10 years, you could buy another 5 to 10 businesses. You could buy a business every year and do the same thing. Now, the SBA is limited to up to $5 million as far as how much they can give you. But in reality, there's other conventional lending mechanisms like SBA, which is a commercial loan, where you can get in more lending and you can do a lot more deals just like this one. So instead of you maybe doing 3 deals of SBA, you might be able to do 5, 7, 10. We've had a client who's done 15 deals in 3 years using this whole process. So now you can see how you can quickly and predictably increase your net worth with way less liquidity with $150,000. Now, you could completely avoid the real estate and not buy it, which is going to make this deal a lot even more attractive. So I'll give an example. Instead of we purchasing it for $1.5 million, we can just pay, let's say, 800K because we're deducting the real estate. So now the debt service cover ratio is a lot higher and the net profit is a lot higher. So you as an owner, you're making way more every year for yourself. And then you could potentially pay off the loan a lot quicker, which means you can sell the business a lot quicker, which means you're going to get your net worth to that point a lot quicker than 10 years. So the title of this video assumed the worst case scenario situation. It didn't even assume best case scenario. If you know how to do this and you could get into a better case scenario situation, you can even make a lot more. Now I'm going to give you a different example, which is very interesting because we're doing deals in between $1 million up to $10 million. And if I'm going to show you a deal that's probably $4.7 million and maybe you don't have a down payment, let's say you don't have for $70,000, which is the 10% of his value, you might struggle to close bigger deals on your own. But closing bigger deals can actually put you in a way better, more stable situation. Let me explain you why. If you buy into a bigger company with a better EBITDA, better net profit, it typically has better people, better systems. It's a more dominant business in that market. And because of it's a more dominant business, it probably has management team in place. It probably has better systems in place, which means it will eventually have less risk for you as an owner. Now, the question is, how are you going to be able to get a loan of a deal, maybe an SBA 7A loan, if you don't have a 10%? This is what's interesting. You could raise this money from somewhere else. So you could get a similar individual like yourself that has, let's say, an additional $370,000. So let's say you put in 100K in the deal, which is I've specified this in this table. And let's say somebody else puts in 370,000, which is really a little bit more than yourself, which means they're putting in more money in the deal. Now, because we can get close to 90% of this actual purchase price, that's $4.2 million roughly. You can clearly see the debt service ratio is very good at 1.72, and I've assumed this business makes 1.2 million net profit, which can be valued sometimes at 4x. It's a very good deal typically. It's not that easy to find, but these deals exist. What's interesting right now is there's a different investor involved with you, and now you get access to a way better and bigger deal for yourself. Now, let's say worst case scenario, you put down 100K and you're gonna pitch the investor that they'll own 80% of a company. So if you're putting in 370,000, you're putting in 100K, you own 20% of that business, and they own 80%. Let's say this is the worst case scenario. So you have 100K, you found this business, you've analyzed the business, you've made an offer, you've negotiated the offer, you come with this offer to an investor that has 370,000. You say, hey, do you want to invest? I could give you 80% of a company, 80% of $4.7 million if you put in 370,000. And he's like, yeah, I want to get in. They get in, they make a lot of money with you. And you put 20%. Now, out of your 20%, you can just be passive as well and let the management take care of a company. Out of your 20%, your 100K now can be close to $1 million, 20% of his business. Worst case scenario is going to be this amount, which is close to $1 million. So if this is how you turn 100K into more than $1 million. Now, here's what's interesting. If you know how to position yourself and you negotiate this amount from 20%, let's say 25%, or let's say 35%, or let's say 45%, and you give them 55%, you just made from 100K, $2 million. And what's even better is, as I said, if you're able to pay the loan a lot quicker and you're able to maybe even buy them out later, I mean, you could probably make closer to $6 million. So this is how you can turn 100K to 150K in liquidity into a lot more capital. A lot of people don't understand how this works, and a lot of people don't leverage loans. A lot of people don't understand how to find deals and how to make offers. If you want to understand how to do that, just DM me on Instagram. Thank you.